Hey, Rob here, and this episode of the Crooked Table Podcast is sponsored by Audible. Of course, this year we're journeying through the wizarding world of Harry Potter, and one of the very best ways to experience the book series is through the incredible audiobooks performed by Jim Dale. Audible has the entire series and so much more just waiting for you. To check out thousands of audiobooks, podcasts, and other spoken word entertainment, start your free 30-day trial today over at audibletrial.com/crooked table. That's audibletrial.com/crooked table. Now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yaniz Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob. On this show, we democratize the film criticism conversation by bringing on fans and critics alike to dig into their personal connection to a current or classic release. You can find more episodes of the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcatchers. If you can drop us a review or rating on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it. And this week, we are continuing our mostly, I guess it's because of the hiatus, year-long investigation, revisitation of the Harry Potter series. And this episode, we're talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I'm honored to welcome back to the show, Freddy Yaniz.
Hello, everyone.
Original co-host of this show back in the day. And I think the last time we had you on was The Matrix.
Yeah, The Matrix.
Which is a big episode for
my
both.
favorite movie.
Well, that's what I said to you.
Yeah.
I was like, you should come on the show. It's 100th episode. Because, you know, we started this together. And I said, what do you want to talk about? And you're like, The Matrix. And I was like, that's my favorite movie. So perfect. We're 100 episodes. We'll just hit it.
And we ended up talking for like maybe
it was like
an hour and a half,
it was
2 hours.
It was like 2.5 hours. I actually much, but back then I was splitting it in half.
Oh yeah, it was 2 different episodes.
yeah, now I'm just like, here's an hour and 45 minutes on one movie. Good luck with that, everybody. But yeah, so when I was doing the Harry Potter thing, we did Star Wars last year, and this year I wanted to do Harry Potter because I feel like it's kind of the modern equivalent of Star Wars in a lot of ways. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Harry Potter to my generation is the Star Wars of your generation.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe even our dad's generation.
Yeah.
Because it came out around, right? It came out in the
Star
70s.
Wars 77 and 80 and 83. The original
so
trilogy,
that comes across several like generations. So
right. Well, like Kevin
pulled
Smith,
in a lot of people.
Kevin Smith, who just turned 50, is like the most famous Star Wars fan. And yeah, he was like, I don't know, 12 or something. So he turned 50. So yeah, he was like, a preteen basically, essentially, in that time before I was born.
Yeah, Star Wars in my generation was the prequels, so the Phantom Menace and nothing to write home.
I guess he was
about,
7 really. Because it's 7. Yeah, so he was 7. So he was like the right age when the first one came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for you, when I decided to do this franchise. Because I know it has a similar fan base to Star Wars, I'd say, other than the MCU, it's probably like these two in the kind of the geek sphere for whatever the generation under the millennials is, I forget, because I'm technically a millennial.
Yeah,
I knew that I wanted to get an episode with you on there because you were really big into Harry Potter. When I barely knew what Harry Potter was, I think we started trying to talk about this beforehand. So I think we saw the first movie, with our parents, and you were 10 at the time. And I was
around the age of
the
people in the movie.
You were the age of, like almost just a year, I think, shy of Harry Potter himself.
Yeah. So
that was your introduction to the franchise, right? Tell people a little bit about how you got into Harry Potter, and then I guess how you got the rest of the household into the franchise.
So yeah, I think it started around. I think I just watched the first movie, and then I fell in love with it, and I started reading the books after, and I just consumed the books, and then just watched the movies come out, and I always thought it was weird when they put like the artist like rendition of it. I was like, it doesn't look anything like Daniel. Right? And Hermione, like her hair is supposed to be always like frizzy, and they only did it really in the first one. Like they teased it out,
That's
and
true,
then they kind of just like let it go off to the side.
Yeah,
I mean, to Emma Watson's
credit.
Yeah. So it's not just a frizzy.
So I think did you
I
say
would have
that?
still fallen in love with her. Though. I fell in love with her in the first one.
I know. I was telling Kai when we were watching it last night. I was like, she's really cute here. I mean, I know she's underage, but like you see in this movie, you see like the features that make her now like really attractive. Like even when she's a little girl, like she basically looks kind of the same, which is weird. In a way that a lot of the other actors look way different from the earlier movies,
especially
but Emma
like
Watson, Neville's like night and day. Neville's like now ripped, and now you're like, hey, Neville Longbottom. He'd be like the hunk of Hogwarts at that point. And I think like Bonnie Wright, who plays Ginny, and like some of the other, like they look totally different. But now we're off our first tangent of the episode. So I think you said that the Deathly Hallows came out around this time, like before, like around the time of this. Or thereabouts.
Yeah, the Deathly Hallows book came out around the time of the fifth movie.
Okay, so soon after.
I remember my first hardcover book was the Order of the Phoenix. Order of the Phoenix. Yeah. So. It wasn't on
paperback yet. And you're like, I ain't waiting for this shit.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got the hardcover. So that puts into perspective like the timeline of everything. So that means like the movies were the books 6 and 7 were still released while the movies were going on at the same time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I remember this is one of my main big memories about getting into when that period was happening, where the books were ahead of the movies, was that you were like very adamant. I would always like mess with you and be like, I'm gonna look up and find out if Dumbledore dies or if Snape is bad, and you're like, you better not. You were like really protective over the franchise, and I thought that was pretty funny, like that you were like you really wanted us to experience it like as it unfolded.
Yeah, that's the case with everything.
Yeah.
Though, because a lot of times, like you wouldn't watch movies or shows. You would just like read up on it first.
Well, it's like if
then watch
if it's something I'm not gonna get into, like Agents of as we're recording this, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just ended like the other day. And I watched the first 2 seasons, and I'm like, I'm not going to catch up with seasons 3 through 7 at this point. I got so much shit in my HBO Max, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus queues. It's like not the top of my list. I still haven't watched Daredevil season 3. So
my God.
I know. I've watched the first few. I just haven't finished it.
You should skip the second one. Went to the 3rd season.
I know. Well, season 2 is fine. We have an episode on that if people want to hear our thoughts on season 2 of Daredevil. But it's like I read about what happened in the series finale because I'm not going to go back and watch that. But yeah, Harry Potter was something I was invested in. So I was like, yeah, okay, you're right. It was just a long wait because it was years of trickling out the rest of the story. And when I realized that this episode was available, that this movie was available to talk about, I was like, well, that's the perfect one for Freddy because this is essentially the turning point of the whole thing. Like I wrote down in my notes, it was like, this is the Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, a.k.a. the one where shit gets real. Yeah. Basically. So let's talk about
everything has been like culminating to this moment, this movie. This is, like you said, it's a turning point. All of it has been kind of like fun and games and in a way, not,
Like I would show my daughter, who's obviously she's 3 now, so she's too little really for any of these. But when she gets a little bit older, I'll probably show her the first 3, and then we'll stop there for a while, until we progress. Yeah. But like the first 3,
or even just the first 2. Some of the parts.
3 is a little bit, with the Dementors.
With the Dementors and the Peter Pettigrew. Mm-hmm. It's a little. That's a little rat creepy. Man. Yeah. How he turns in from a rat to
that's some like. Have you ever seen The Witches from 1990? You should watch that.
No, I haven't.
It's really good. It has some of that kind of transformation stuff. That's a good movie. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yes, this is the one where like those first 2 are very, and I've talked about this on the podcast on previous episodes. The first 2 are very much of a piece. They're the same director. They have a similar tone. They're very slavish to the books. Like you can almost tick your watch, being like, oh, there's chapter 1, there's chapter 2, like every 5 to 7 minutes or whatever. Like there's a chapter break in the movie. They're very light and sentimental, and they make you want to cry at the end, and that's kind of their jam. Yeah. And then the third one is much more like Tim Burton-esque. and much more spooky. It takes it to that dark place, but like to the same level of spookiness as something like Hocus Pocus. Not that it's obviously a better movie than Hocus Pocus, even though I like Hocus Pocus, but it's still like kid friendly.
Yeah.
And now this was the first one that was PG-13. It's the first one where there's an actual on-screen death, not just, by the way, this Dark Wizard guy did some bad shit 13 years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
And then from this point on, this Voldemort's arrival is the thrust of the rest of the franchise. And it's basically, if you're looking at this as comparative to the original Star Wars saga, the 6-part Star Wars, this is the Revenge of the Sith, where shit just turns. Mm-hmm. So what was that like for you, I guess, before we get into the movie, reading the book for the first time and realizing that that's where the story was heading? And I don't remember exactly what age you were when you would have read that, but you were probably around the same age as the kids still.
No, I would say maybe I was like 12 then. Yeah, I would say I was maybe 12 because I read the books really quickly. So yeah. I probably read all the books before even the sequel came out. You know what I mean? Nice. Or Chamber of Secrets.
Right.
So, but when I read it, I mean, there was a lot of things that were obviously missing, but I feel like in the end, they took the biggest like parts and they went with it. Like you don't want to have. Dobby and Winky and all of them and like the kitchen elves and stuff. So I like where they went with the movie.
It's the first one
and the turning point where they Portkey to. I mean, we're kind of getting ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to like see it. On screen. Life. Yeah, come to life on screen. Yeah.
It's the first one where they've had to make liberal cuts, like you were saying. Like the first 3, there's little things here and there that they cut out, but those books are pretty manageable. And I guess that's also the other reason why I see those first 3 as sort of kids' stories in a way, because the books are, a few hundred pages, but they're not like the rest of them from 4 on are. Basically.
Yeah,
they're not like.
I think this one's like 700 and.
Yeah,
like
and then it goes. I think
pages
either 5 or 6. I think is the longest.
Yeah.
And then 7 was so crucial that they're just like, we have to do 2 movies. We can't. It's all A plot basically. There's no B. There's no like Winky that you can cut out, which sounds very much more violent and scary for us guys than I intended. The Winky being cut out, but yeah. So I think that's kind of a good key up into talking about the actual movie because I want to make sure we get to that relatively quickly. So. Let's listen to a little bit of the trailer for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire right now.
Is that Hermione Granger with Victor Crumb?
You're fraternising with the enemy.
The enemy?
Hogwarts has been chosen to host a legendary event, the Triwizard Tournament. And now, the champion selection. Victor Crumb, Fleur Delacour, Cedric Diggory, Harry Potter!
How did you do it? I didn't put my name in that cup. I don't want eternal glory. It's blood moody.
Avada Kedavra. The killing curse. Only one person is known to have survived it, and he's sitting in this room.
People die in this tournament. The devils are inside the walls. Something's coming closer. I can feel it. The Dark Lord shall rise again.
That was a little bit of the trailer for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, directed by Mike Newell, who I think had done things like 4 Weddings and a Funeral, things like that before. And he's also the first British director of this franchise, which had an American do the first 2, and then a Mexican did the 3rd one, Alfonso Cuarón. Yeah. And then after this, David Yates takes over for the duration, including the Fantastic Beasts movies. So first of all, transitioning from the book side of it, I guess you kind of already touched this, but where does this rank as far as adaptations from book to film, and where does this one rank for you in the overall saga? Big questions.
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I'd have to reread some of the books. In terms of like my favorites, I'd say I like the last one the best. So the Deathly Hallows would be best for me.
The movies or the books? Or both, I guess.
Probably both, yeah. Then Order of the Phoenix, then Prisoner of Azkaban. Then
So this is like middle.
yeah, this is about middle of the road, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think I'm a little more favorable than this. I feel like, again, I'm rewatching them all now for the first time, and I don't know, whenever I showed these to Kai several years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still kind of evaluating it myself, but I love that right from the beginning for this one, you get that feeling that it is, like we said, darker from the very beginning. You have the first on-screen death, I forgot, in the first like 2 minutes of the movie, where the innkeeper kind of walks up and sees Voldemort. Nagini kind of swoops behind him, and there's your first Avada Kedavra.
Technically, you don't see him die.
You don't see him. That's true.
Yeah, because
it's
technically
implied.
you could say like,
It's
the
implied.
parent, like you show like the parents being killed when they flash back or whatever.
Right.
It's because of the love, all that stuff. But you never actually see someone die until the end of the film. That one, it goes like Avada Kedavra, and then
Harry wakes up.
and Harry just wakes up,
Right.
with like, was that a dream? It felt so real. Blah,
Right.
Blah, blah.
I do love that too. Now that you mentioned that, we should just jump into that part of it. I like all the setup in this one for the connection between Voldemort and Harry. Like you can tell, like I don't know if J.K. Rowling had planned that before because it doesn't really show up in the previous stories.
Yeah.
But starting in this one, there's like he has visions. I mean, I think the closest you get is that his scar burns when Voldemort is near. That happens in the other ones. But I think this is the first time they're like, no, there's a mental connection. Like they can like see shit that's happening in each other's lives, sort of. Am I right in saying that this is the first kind of step towards where Order of the Phoenix really takes it?
Yeah, and also it makes sense that it has to put a little bit of his blood. Well, I guess we're
It's fine.
I'm jumping.
No, it's all good. Spoilers. It's like a 15-year-old movie, guys.
Putting a little bit of his blood in the cauldron at the end of the
Right.
movie because it's also like, Voldemort's a part of him or whatever.
But it's
so
also
maybe,
so that's how he can touch him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they both tie into the other movies perfectly, in the sense of the burning and seeing each other's visions. I don't know if Voldemort could see Harry, but
yeah, because
at this
Voldemort
point, 'cause
left.
This is when it first.
We're not going to
happened.
get to the reason that the ultimate reveal with Harry and Voldemort's connection, which is in Deathly Hallows, but it deals with the prophecy and all that stuff. It's the first indication that we get that there's a little piece of. Well, I guess they say it in the previous movies that there's a piece of Voldemort left behind in Harry, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That there's that connection that he's able to kind of see things, and it's a big weapon that he uses against him in the next few movies.
I don't know if they say that that's a piece of him.
Transferred some of his powers, I think. Dumbledore says to Harry
in the early ones, or
2, I think. That's how they explain the parcel tongue.
Okay.
See, I'm gotten really in the weeds with this franchise now.
Not that he's like.
Yeah, but it's the first like.
Not that he's a part of him,
stuff,
but it transferred some of his powers over to him.
Right.
Okay. I thought it was maybe like this is like a footprint of what happened.
Yeah.
Kind of, and he left his footprint on you.
Well,
not in the sense like he's transferred over to him.
Right.
Because I don't think Harry
consciousness
knew that. Yeah. Otherwise, he would have thought about like the Horcruxes and maybe. I mean, he kind of knew, but he didn't really know until he saw like. This is later in the movies.
It's all good.
But until he saw like images in the pensive and stuff. Pensive.
Pensive. I think they say it as pensive. I don't know.
Mm.
Because it's a plan where it's pensive, like the word, like you're thinking of something thoughtfully. You being pensive, but pensive, like a sieve that you
I've
put
always
things
called it
in.
pensive.
Either way, it works. It's all good. You see it on the page. They don't even. I think they say it in these movies like very, very, very fast though.
Yeah.
But I love that dynamic between my favorite thing in whether it's Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Matrix, whatever, is the hero villain dynamic. How they're like like so similar in a lot of ways, but also complete opposites in some ways. So you get like literally in the Matrix, which I'm gonna talk about the sequels eventually, not with you, but because you're like, fuck that, not into it. Smith is literally his negative, his opposite, his negative, and you get that. You're sort of starting to get the similar background for these two characters, for Harry and Voldemort. How they grew up, their past is marred by tragedy. They have similar, just similar paths, and you start to see the little moments where Harry could have gone the other way. In this one, and because you know you had technical difficulty with your DVD, in this one you have that moment. I guess you did see this part in the maze,
yes,
where he almost leaves Cedric there. Like he has that moment where he's like, I thought you were gonna leave me there, and he's like, for a second, so did I. Yeah. Like you could see the little flashes of darkness in him, and I think this movie, considering we hadn't really met Voldemort until this point, I think it's astonishing to me how much groundwork had been done to get us to that point. You know what I mean? Because in the first one, he's some face on the back of some dude's head. In the second one, he's a memory in the book. The third one, you don't see Voldemort at all. Actually, it's the only one that he's not. I think it's the only one he's not seen whatsoever. Because even in the next one, it's Half-Blood Prince maybe. Even in Half-Blood Prince, you see like flashbacks to Voldemort. In Prisoner of Azkaban, there's no trace. You just hear lots about Voldemort, obviously. But you don't see Voldemort in the movie at all. And this is the first time we really meet him. And it's
in his current form.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's as I said when I was watching it recently, I said he's like a little man baby for most until he gets thrown in the bath, basically. So yeah, not exactly. He's kind of scary, but yeah, you get that moment where they finally come face to face has that much impact because they've been spent 3.5 movies building up to finally seeing this dude's noseless face.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm sure someone created like a little doll that's like Voldemort.
With no nose.
Yeah, with no nose, yeah.
Well, there's that thing in what's the next one, I think, where they're like, Voldemort, we have something that Voldemort doesn't have. And you and I were always like, noses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing. But I love that hero-villain dynamic. And I think that they tease it out really in a fun way in this movie, where they talk about Voldemort, like they reference him, the Death Eaters and stuff, but they don't, but yet that graveyard sequence still kind of comes as a surprise because you don't know that's, spoilers, a Portkey when you're reading or watching it for the first time. So it just completely floors you. And I know now we're skipping way ahead, but we're not really going sequentially. So I guess let's talk about the graveyard scene. Just talk about the ending since we're in it.
Yeah.
That sequence is, I wrote it down here too, is straight fire. Like that is one of my favorite sequences in the whole saga franchise, whatever this thing is. And I think it's because of the moment that I said. It's the moment where you first, like Luke and Vader first face off, basically. It's like it's that kind of thing.
For the first time, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that sequence and why it works so well and why I'm getting all amped up just talking about it?
So it blindsides you in the movie a little bit, but in the books it completely blindsides you because you don't suspect anything is going to happen at once they reach the trophy. Because there's you can maybe like guess like something is wrong because there's the whole thing with Moody and they show like some of the quirk that Barty Crouch had with the tongue. Yeah. So you can kind of like, they added that wasn't in the books. So
what wasn't in the books? The tongue thing?
The tongue twitch thing. So there was really no like tell that this guy was Barty Crouch was Moody or playing Moody in school. But if you're watching the movie, you can maybe think like, oh, this is weird. Barty Crouch Sr. even like notices that something's off
there's that great scene where I'm watching it knowing the twist because I've seen this before.
Yeah, and
you're watching Brendan Gleeson play Barty Crouch under the thing, and also him trying to be like it's like a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like there's so much layers to his performance in this movie, but especially in that scene. But yeah, that's kind of the, I guess, if there is a tip off in this, that's the biggest one.
in the books, there's absolutely no way that you would know that that's going to be a Portkey, and it just, they touch it and all of a sudden they're in, an ominous graveyard.
Right.
So, and they're like, what's going on, So, again, great to see the portrayal in the movies and everything, and the tones were so much darker watching it than reading it, for sure. But the surprise was a lot more in your face. The surprise, it did come out of nowhere in the books, though. As in the movie, you could maybe guess, something's up here if you're really, analyzing everything. But there's only, little detail, little hints that they give you throughout the movie.
I think these movies, I feel like I mentioned this on one of the previous episodes. I'm probably, forgive me listeners if I'm repeating myself, but I feel like they are underrated for the way that they function as mysteries. Because I think that legitimately all of these movies are essentially at their core, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, they're mystery stories with kids trying to Scooby-Doo, that's kind of, they're fantasies, but they're mysteries laid within a fantasy world, really, is what they are, kind of. And I think that this one has such a cool way that it unfolds with, as you said, the Mad-Eyed Moody thing, and then the way that it completely flips on its head, and then you and Harry and Cedric briefly are plunged into this nightmare escape, and it just that sequence just works so well. It feels otherworldly, and I don't know,
the tone completely flips.
100%.
I mean, you talk about the turning point. That moment is the turning point. I mean, the whole book is, but that moment is specifically, you go from they're it's they're just competing in this tournament, and it's serious, and there's danger, but there's never real danger like being surrounded by Death Eaters and your worst or enemy that you dream about, and that's caused havoc for years and everything. So and killed your parents, so it's
But in one fell swoop, you're in the shit with
Pretty
Harry.
Much, yeah.
And I think, and I want to ask your opinion because you obviously read the books before you saw the movies.
Yeah.
How did you think Ralph Fiennes did as Voldemort? Did he embody that character? Did he have the impact that he was supposed to, or did you picture him differently? What was kind of your perspective seeing this noseless snake man kind of emerge from the fire and whatever?
I didn't really have an image of Voldemort in mind when I really read the books, but I love, Ralph Fiennes' depiction of it.
Yeah, he really gets
his portrayal.
He leans, and he's my favorite kind of villain, which is unabashedly evil. The Palpatine, again, keep going back to Star Wars, but these franchises have a lot in common as far as their chosen one narratives and all that stuff. The pasty-faced Dark Lords. I mean, he just leans into the evilness and just he's just hamming it up a little bit when he's on screen.
Yeah, I love it.
It's so much fun.
I love the in the 8th movie, when he gives Malfoy this awkward hug. That's one of my favorite moments of him. He's come here, and he just
good job, Draco.
Yeah. Exactly. And he just gives the weirdest hug ever, and Draco's why are you hugging me?
He has his cackle game is on point too, because he's
yeah, that's perfect.
Harry Potter is dead.
Yeah.
And he gets really excited. But I want to kind of use that since we're going complete backwards, but the graveyard scene, as we said, awesome, perfect. Poor Robert Pattinson in this movie, and then I wish that would have happened to him in Twilight, so we would have spared us. Let's talk about the rest of the
Team
cast.
Jacob.
Robert Pattinson, I thought actually in this movie, very charming, very likable. You feel sad when he gets murdered. Thoughts?
Yeah, because he's the typical nice guy,
right?
You notice that in ways he's probably better than Harry in terms of his his heroic and
he's not as much
nice.
of a reluctant hero as Harry.
Exactly.
He would have probably just gone for it and had everybody like,
Exactly.
I don't know, should I? What's it do?
He's like the straight depiction of Gryffindor.
Right.
So,
and you feel for him when he goes.
He's Gryffindor, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be torn apart.
Yeah, he's Gryffindor.
I'm pretty sure. I'm a Potter fan, but there's some like really serious like Harry Potter fans. So I don't want to get.
Oh yeah, there's really serious everything fans, especially these days. So I don't blame you. But no, I love not only that they let him be nice, even though he's kind of Harry's competition as far as representing Hogwarts and competing in the Triwizard Tournament, but the two of them, there's not really an animosity between them.
Yes.
There's not really a Harry Draco situation with Cedric. They're competing each other, sure, but they're not like. There's no real hate or anything going on. They actually kind of have each other's backs. Harry learns about the dragons. He tells Cedric. Cedric figures out the thing with it's all Mad-Eye Moody / Barty Crouch pulling the strings, but still. Yeah. Cedric learns about it and about the egg and tells Harry, and then they go and grab the Portkey together at the end. Like there's a friendship there that I think makes you feel even more for him when he's taking it out of commission. So it's like I almost wish. Obviously, I wish he hadn't got killed, but then we wouldn't have the impact of that moment. But he almost wished that he would have lasted a little bit longer in that graveyard because he might have been able to help Harry out a little bit. But he, like us, he's like, wait, we're in a different movie now. Because when this movie was marketed, for people that hadn't read the books, you're like, Harry Potter in like a Wizard Olympics, what up? How's that going to go? And then they're like, nope, you haven't been watching that movie. You've been watching Voldemort getting him to this point. Like the entire movie is completely reframed. And I love that about it.
Yeah, and he's the first. I mean, I guess in the first movie, The Sorcerer's Stone, what isn't the teacher the one with the face on the back of his head?
Quirrell. Yeah.
He dies, doesn't he?
Yeah, he turns to ash and goes, oh.
Okay, so he's the first one to really die. This is the first good guy.
That's true. Okay, first hero. But he also kind of disintegrates on accident, I guess. I guess it's the first time the good guys lose in any way. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Like it's the Avengers Infinity War of Harry Potter too. Exactly. Or Empire Strikes Back or whatever you want to compare it to. Yeah. But it's that. And I love the way that it is. Of course you have to buy into the fact that, well, this was Voldemort's plan, because I always watch it. I'm like, I love that it's now all of a sudden a different movie. But on the other hand, I'm like, really? A year of you can't like make Harry Potter's like coffee mug turn into a Portkey, and then he goes to get a sip in the morning and I'm in the graveyard. Oh shit! Yeah. Like, why does it have to be like a year of like undercover polyjuice potion and
it's too extra
and all this right? Voldemort's such a diva that he's just like, no, it's gonna be. He's like Dr. Evil. He's like. Yeah. Put them in the unnecessarily slow-moving dipping mechanism. I'm like, seriously. I have a wand in my room. I'll go get it.
Exactly.
All about a cadaver, his brains out.
You could have done it to anything. You could have done it to his broom. You could have done it to his wand.
I mean, at a certain point, you just got to be like, because then there would be no movie, I guess.
Accio firebolts, and then he touches the thing and he's gone.
Accio firebolt. Oh shit, where'd he go? Yeah, the first task.
But I guess they have to do it where there wouldn't possibly be any witnesses. That's the only explanation that I can think of.
Except for Cedric.
Because anyone could be like, oh, he touched his coffee mug and he was just gone. And Dumbledore's like, well, something is up here. Yeah. Something is up here. I need to find out where he is or what to do. But if they're supposedly in the maze, they have no idea that,
what's happening. They don't know where to. They don't know that he's gone. And their plan was clearly to kill Harry and then I guess send Harry's dead body back and be like, haha, bitches, Voldemort was here. Essentially,
or not. I don't know.
Have him never show up again.
Just have him,
disappear. But yeah, that was clearly the plan. Didn't go so well for old no-nos. But yeah, so I like that.
It did, just not all the way.
He got there. He got part of the way. He just dropped the ball at the finish line or whatever sports analogy you want to use for that. So I'm talking about the performances real fast. I also wrote down about Brendan Gleeson, Mad-Eye Moody. We talked about that. He's a great actor in general. He's been in a million other things. And of course, Emma Watson, I think we can all pretty much agree, probably the MVP among the kids of all of these movies, I would say.
And in our hearts.
And in our hearts. and in the hearts of
she's definitely the
Beast
more mature one out of
and Gaston.
Out of the three of them.
She's the most well developed, I think, too. Like you understand her more than the other two characters, I think. You know?
Yeah.
You see more facets of her personality. She's more she goes from being the concerned friend to like, you know, I don't know, she's jealous with Ron, and they have like this is also the first one of the.
It's more like the know-it-all, like do-gooder.
Yeah, she gets a lot more depth.
Concerned friend to you know trying to be more than just like
Harry's sidekick
doing her own thing, and becoming more independent instead of it just being like I'm just part of the group.
Right.
Yeah.
This is also, since we're talking about Hermione, this is also the first one where you really they lean way more into the romantic subplot, because you get in the first three, you know, they're kids, so like Hermione gets scared and grabs Ron's hand in the last one, and then us, the viewers, like, oh, they like each other. Like you get little glimpses of those in the first three, but this is the first one where they're like, hey, we're teenagers, we got hormones and shit. She's pretty, I know it. What up? You know?
Yeah.
And this is where they start to toy with that more. And then obviously in the next one, there's Cho Chang and Harry. And then in 6, it's like the whole, like a big portion of Half-Blood Prince is all about the love potion and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Teenagers in love, essentially. What are your thoughts on that subplot, the way it goes here? Did you think it felt like a natural progression? And to that, to the end, as far as Hermione, a lot of people, including J.K. Rowling, have said, "Shit, I should have put her with Harry and not Ron." Where do you land on that? Do you ship Hermione and Harry, or what?
I've always thought that Hermione should be with Harry, but I like the whole aspect with pairing him with Ron, though, just because it adds a little bit more depth to Ron's character. And developing their relationship, and then it shows like, okay, Harry and Hermione are just friends. They're just very, very good close friends, but she has romantic feelings for Ron. So there's like a dynamic of relationships between the three of them.
Right.
You know?
And they play off of that in the rest of the movies, I think, really well. Like this is the first time, this is the movie where I think they kind of solidify the platonic nature of Harry and Hermione, where she goes to to see him in the tent before the first task, and Rita Skeeter twists everything around, and she shows obvious feelings for Ron, like you said. Like this is where jealousy. This is where they like really lean into Hermione being into Ron feeling secondary to Harry, Ron's worry that maybe her subconscious even that Hermione's going to fall for Harry, which you see in 7 with that vision, which I think is a really cool payoff to shit that starts happening now.
Exactly, yeah.
And just, you know, as far as seeing a male-female platonic friendship in these kinds of movies, I think it's nice that Harry and Hermione always have each other's back, but not each other's front. that you have the scene in the tent, the scene in 7 where they're hiding, and then Ron gets pissed off and storms out, and then they're like dancing to just try and have a moment of lightness in like this crazy shit that they're in. Exactly. Yeah, there's never romantic tension really between them. They're just like, they know where they stand, and I think that's cool to see that in a movie where, like you mentioned Twilight a little while ago, where it's like, oh, Team Edward or Team Jacob, which one is she gonna pick? Oh, yeah. They don't play that game here as much.
No, exactly.
It's just a gradual build up to Ron and Hermione, which I think is cool. Not necessarily that Ron deserves her, but that's a totally separate thing. There's people that end up with people they don't deserve all the time, so it's believable that it'll happen in the magical world as well. So we haven't even really talked about the Triwizard Tournament very much. So, of course, the three schools come together, the Beauxbatons, Durmstrang, and I can't believe I remembered those off the top of my head. I didn't even have them written down. And they have the three tasks, the dragons, the mermaids, and then, of course, the maze. I think that I really like this idea, and I think part of why the movie benefits from having a British director is that it feels like a movie based in the UK. You know what I mean? Like, even from the beginning, with you see the Quidditch World Cup, it feels more tangible, like it's grounded in a real, actual nation that exists in our world, as opposed to just generic movie land. You know what I mean? And I think that is a testament to the director, but also the testament to how Hogwarts needs to stand, distinguish itself from those two other schools, from other nations. Thoughts?
The only thing is that I like that it's to unify all the schools and bring everyone together, but if he's clearly underage, why do they gotta be like, it's the rules?
I wrote that down too. You're ahead of me now.
Yeah, like he's 14 and the 17's the cutoff. That doesn't. Why does he have to?
Barty Crouch is like, it's a binding magical contract, and I wrote, how about fuck you, Goblet? Like,
exactly.
We said it's not.
Yeah. And what's the guy's the headmaster's name?
Cornelius Fudge
from Crumb School.
No, from Karkakoff.
Yeah, so he tampered with the goblet to have Crumb's name come out.
Okay. They don't cover that in the movie. I don't think.
It shows him like going towards the goblet and like closing the door.
Oh,
so it,
yeah,
like,
they imply it.
To
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And during the scene where the papers are being thrown out to show who the contestants or the champions are going to be,
right?
And it pulls out a fourth name. He's like, oh, maybe I did something wrong.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, because he obviously did he tampered with the goblet in some way to make Crumb's name come out because he wants his school to
his
win
best
or
person,
something.
yeah.
He wants the best, yeah, exactly.
It's, you mentioned Karkakoff. I said fuck you, Goblet already. So... that's the other thing that I really like about this movie is not only the national representation in that, but also this is the first time I believe, at least in the movies, we even hear what his followers named. Like we even hear the term Death Eaters, basically.
Yes.
They, in the other movies they mention, he had his followers and blah blah blah, but they didn't give them a name. We learn about the death. Like a lot. This is the one where you're like. We are basically the audience we're in a Defense Against the Dark Arts class because they're like, hey, all right, Death Eaters, the Dark Mark, unforgivable curses. Like it's like straight up. This is the most I think information we get about how the dark magic works thus far because you're like, hey, you're gonna need to know this because we're gonna spend a lot of time with He Who Must Not Be Named. So get on the ball. But it gets into the whole question of once you're a Death Eater. Can you ever really stop being a Death Eater? Which is a big question for the rest of the movies. Karkakoff, as it turns out, unrepentant. Seems like he's straight up on board with Voldemort from the jump. Malfoy, kinda like secretively being like, putting his chips in Voldemort's column. But
it's like the mafia. Like you can't leave. Ever,
right.
You either leave in a body bag or you have to like run and hide.
Well, even more than that.
And and with him being gone, a lot of them, probably ended up not being Death Eaters anymore. And if they didn't show up in the graveyard, they might have been killed. You know what I mean? And obviously you see when they show up in the graveyard, he's like, how come no one came for me? And Lucius is like, I didn't hear it. If I heard any whisper, I would have. And he's like, there's been whispers, motherfucker.
You're not listening.
You're not listening.
Ears to the ground, Lucius.
Yeah.
But even more so than you mentioned the mafia, even more so, you get a lot of, and they say this about the Empire all the time, like in Star Wars, continue that comparison now. That they're like basically space Nazis. And these are essentially magic Nazis or or even sort of related, Ku Klux Klan, you get like when they show up at the Quidditch World Cup with their big hooded, hooded pointy masks and like the torches and shit, like very like straight up ripped right out of American history class.
Yeah. Instead of black people, it's Muggles.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much like the master race, kind of like they're magic Nazis / Klan members, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the analog that they're going for with these movies. So the whole thing there being, can you really reform from that? And that's kind of what this movie starts to lean into even more so. Really, I think kind of laying the groundwork for Snape's arc and the mystery behind him in Half-Blood Prince and kind of going into the last one, because we get a glimpse at the trials of some of these people, of Karkaroff and Barty Crouch Jr. being like sort of like secretively on the side there. They, like you said, they have...
they reveal that he used to be a Death Eater.
Right. And they have the dark marks, which is sort of a symbol. It's almost like having a swastika tattooed on your arm.
You can see that he was even in the scene where Harry's walking by and Snape's in his closet. That guy again, the headmaster, what's his name? Karkaroff? Mm-hmm. He's like showing
Karkaroff, yeah.
Yeah, he's showing Snape the mark on his arm, and he's like talking about
shit's happening. Look, it's glowing and stuff or whatever.
Yeah. And that's when he walks by.
Right.
So he's like trying to tell Snape or whatever to, I guess
rally
little
the
did
troops.
he know. I guess little did he know he was like a spy or something.
Yeah.
According to Dumbledore, he didn't look in the pensive.
Snape?
Pensive.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. Pensive for me.
But I love that we get a glimpse of that. I mean, through Harry's our entry point into this world, so of course they have to introduce the pensive or pensive, however, whatever we want to say.
I really think it's pensive. I've always read it like a sieve. Like it reads the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you get that magical device sort of introduced here to give us flashbacks, which they again use more later in the sequels. Mm-hmm. So I love that part of it, and I think it's just a cool idea to put in these fantasy, in air quotes, fantasy kids movies, sort of this like heavy subject matter of once you do these terrible things, can you be redeemed? Once you marginalize an entire, for lack of a better term, race, in this case, Muggles and Half-Bloods and whatever, can you come back from that? And the movie doesn't really give you an indication 100% of that. I think this is just them putting the question out there, and then they answer it later on when we do get the whole Snape, pensive thing with the teardrop, and we kind of get his full backstory. We're like, oh, he was actually on Harry's side on Harry's side the whole time. Like, you kind of get that perspective on it, and I think it's just a cool idea that they're baking into this movie, and it's part of what makes this franchise and what makes fantasy, sci-fi, horror, those genres so fascinating to talk about and to discuss and break down, is that they're able to tackle these like very heavy real life themes, but because it's all magic, it's more accessible. If you made a movie about Nazis, you're not going to bring your 8-year-old to go see that in the movie theater. But if there's magic involved, you can kind of teach them a similar lesson. And I think, I don't know, I love that part of it.
Yeah, the subject matter is definitely dark, but it has all like the wands and this. There's no
right.
And the killing is just them saying a spell. It's
and
not
then
like,
passing out.
Yeah, it's not as extreme.
Yeah. Speaking of the unforgivable curses, that scene with the spider, I love that shit.
Well, that's also really important too, because we didn't know watching the movie, or if you read the book, obviously, but watching the movie, you didn't know that was Barty Crouch Jr. But, that's the curse that he did on Neville's parents, the Cruciatus.
Cruciatus,
curse. So he knew that, that he did that to his parents, and he was trying to get like a rise out of him, I guess, because obviously it bothers him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To see it true. When it happened to his parents.
That's right, he did that. There's pretty much everything Mad Eye Moody does in this movie, you can look at it like, oh, he's well-meaning but kind of extreme. He's like the J.K. Simmons from Whiplash of the Harry Potter world. Yeah. Not quite my tempo. that kind of thing. Or he's a psychopath pretending not to be.
Yeah,
and there's that's the turning Malfoy into a ferret thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was not as much about protecting Harry and more about messing with Lucius's son.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Because for one, it might be he just doesn't like Lucius, or two, it might be because Lucius wasn't really as faithful. So I feel like he had other intentions behind turning. There's
a double motive to everything that Mad Eye, fake Mad Eye does in this movie.
Yeah.
But I love the Unforgivable Curses sequence with the spider. It's just really, it kind of turns comedic in a way with him like messing with the students, even though that's like grossly inappropriate. Everything he does is grossly inappropriate. But
I mean, all the 3 Unforgivable Curses were done in the movie. Because the Cruciatus Curse, not only is it important because Neville's parents and feeding into his backstory and Barty Crouch Jr.'s backstory, but it was also done to Harry in the graveyard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, the Avada Kedavra was done to Cedric in the graveyard. And then the last one is to control people. And that's what happened to... I'm pretty sure that's what happened to Crumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good point.
Yeah. So, and that's why he was going after everyone in the maze except Harry. Mm-hmm. And you notice, like, he sees Harry, obviously, and he chooses not to do anything because it's like, I'm going after everyone else.
Because we're talking about the unforgivable curses. You made me think of Chamber of Secrets, because at the end, and I talk about that on that episode, Lucius is ready to fucking kill Harry in front of Dumbledore's office. It's like you can hear him go Avada, like with his wand. But also, I'm thinking now maybe the Imperio curse is what Tom Riddle or whoever used on Ginny to get her to kind of, because young Tom Riddle says that she was in a, so we say, sort of trance or whatever, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that was the Imperio curse that was making Ginny write the stuff on the wall and kind of be sort of the culprit of the whole Chamber of Secrets. So yeah. So I never even thought of that until now. I think that's a testament to how well these ideas are seeded in the stories, that then she kind of tosses like a little crumb, no pun intended, in one of the earlier books, and then like goes back to their old stories and it's like, okay, how can I expand that into a much more fleshed out and integral idea into this one, and then going forward.
It's also rounding out an idea.
Right.
It's like, okay, this was mentioned, and you can mention things all day, but if it's important to the story and it's like a callback moment in a way, I mean, that's great storytelling.
Yeah. And I think she really handles that insanely well in this franchise. We mentioned sort of Rita Skeeter and the whole romantic thing, and Ron and jealous of Harry. And that's the other thing I wrote down. Why is Ron such a dick in this? And then I answered my own question. I was like, because he's 14. Yeah. Because he's 14 and he's friends with Harry Potter, which I feel like anybody that was friends with Harry Potter, and, maybe not anybody, because a lot of the other people don't, but Ron's background is so different than Harry's. And he's not seeing the fact that, I have this family that loves me, and I lived in a home, and I had hand-me-downs, but I have never really been lonely or, felt unloved. Meanwhile, Harry's living in fucking under his stairs, being stomped on by his cousin. And
he's very woe is me.
Yeah,
He's like, oh, well,
first world problems.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, I get this dress as a Yule ball,
right?
Like it's like a gown. Pretty much. And Harry gets this nice, outfit.
Well, Harry's got that fortune.
And he doesn't get the girl that he wants. And he feel like he's always being like overshadowed, I guess.
Yeah.
By Harry. In the first two movies, it was kind of like, okay, I'm your sidekick. I'm just there along
now
the
he's
ride.
like, I'm tired of this shit.
Like, I want to have my own
and then
individuality.
Is it the next one where he joins the Quidditch team? Or 6? It might be 6.
It's 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that they continue to develop that. He's like Robin being like, hey, why do I got to be your partner? I'm going to be White Nightwing. Screw you, man.
Yeah.
I do my own thing. But yeah, I like that you get a little, and that's very true to life as far as being a friend of someone that's super popular or whatever.
Yeah.
And also, then being, that age and kind of searching for identity. And I think, in the movie, it comes off like, why is Ron being a whiny little, brat about this? But in context, I think it makes sense that he would face that at some point. And 14 is as good a time as any to do that. We don't get a lot of the Malfoys in this. Like, we don't get a lot of Draco. Mm-hmm. But I think, and I'll mention this when I get to that episode, Draco really has his moment to shine again in 6. I feel like that's where it's really a Draco story. Mm-hmm. But I do like that they're, how diligently these movies keep that ensemble around. Even if Maggie Smith doesn't really have that much to do except dance with Ron when she explains what the Yule Ball is, like they keep those people there. Like they make sure that we know that they're there throughout all of this, and I like that. Is there a particular moment or character that's in that kind of more underserved supporting cast that you like in this one?
In this movie?
Yeah. Because we always get the kids, we get the new additions like the Mad-Eye Moody in this, but then you have the Dumbledore, you have McGonagall, you have of course Snape, you have some of the other teachers and other kids in Gryffindor mostly.
In this movie, there's not a lot of. It's mainly just Harry trying to figure out what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
In the tournament, there's not a lot of scenes like in 7 and 8. Particularly where there's a lot more like rounding off of as a character and I had one that I wanted to throw out there. Yeah,
I really like, and of course we don't get a lot of him in this movie. Minus, why you steal stuff from my storeroom? You're making polyjuice potion, aren't you? Yeah. I really like the moment where he's like watching them talk in study hall, and he like hits them with the book. And like they keep talking, and he keeps walking by, and he's just like, and he like
rolls up
his sleeve and gets ready to put their heads down. Alan Rickman, R.I.P. He's so perfect in these movies. Not only because he makes us all cry in the last one, but because even when he has a crumb of material to work with, he sells that shit like you wouldn't believe. In 5, he gets the great moment with Umbridge. She's like, oh, so you wanted to be Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, and you were passed over for that role or whatever. And he's like, obviously, like you get that, like he's that dry wit that Snape has. Yeah, he's so perfect every single time. I did want to mention too, while we're on the kind of the standard Hogwarts staff members, Dumbledore. There's that moment early on. That you know what I'm about to say, where Harry's name is pulled from the cup, and people that read the books first lost their shit when Dumbledore reacts to Harry afterwards, because in the books he's like, Harry, did you put your name in the? He's like very chill, very composed, very like that's kind of his like he's kind of zen. He's in these latter movies after the second one where Richard Harris passed away and they brought Michael Gambon in to play Dumbledore. He's a little more. He's a little like hippie-ish. He's much more free spirit. Is kind of his vibe. Mm-hmm. So in the movie, he instead of being like very chilly asking Harry, "What up, Harry? Why you do that?"
Yeah.
Pass.
Did you do it or did you not?
Yeah. And Harry's like, "Did you put your name in the?" Like he like bum rushes Harry. Harry's like, "Holy shit."
It's trying to be more dramatic, I guess.
I think so. I don't know if it works.
To make it seem
because when I was watching this last night, I tweeted out like podcast prep # scary Dumbledore with that gif. I was like, did you put your name on the goblet? I was like, Jesus Christ. Did that feel out of character to you? Or did it stand out to you at all? Or did you not even notice it until, I guess, people were bothered by it? Or did I just now bring it up for the first time? Lots of options.
To be honest, I don't think I really like realized in the moment. But I did hear about that.
Well, because the moment goes by so fast,
but he does overreact a lot in the movie in comparison to the books.
Yeah.
He's more inquisitive in the books and calm as he is later in the later movies. He's not so like,
It's true.
accusatory and like blaming him for it. He's like, oh, something is like at works here.
Right.
He's more like where McGonagall is. Mm-hmm. Like she's being calm. She's being like, well, someone obviously, did this, and this couldn't have been Harry, and Dumbledore's just going off the rails.
What the hell? Yeah. Take your medicine.
And Moody's trying to like feed them like, oh well, who else could it be? He probably had an older kid do it,
Yeah.
It's like don't be a suspect.
Way above the talents of a fourth year or something like that. Because like in 6, Dumbledore's like, Harry, come on, hang out with me. We're gonna go destroy a Horcrux, and there's like a swirl of fire, and it's like some crazy shit happens.
The trust
He's
is
like,
real.
It's all good. Let's go. It's fine.
The trust is real.
Shit happens. Look, my hand is all jacked up. What up? No,
exactly.
No problem.
That's true to Dumbledore. And that whole like scene where he kind of, flipped. It just played. It was just for the moment, like to add drama to the moment. Like, oh my god, like
even Dumbledore's
there's
upset.
A fourth
this is
name.
serious. Dumbledore never gets upset.
Yeah.
Look at his blood pressure. And then at the end, he says, Harry, I put you in a lot of danger this year. And I'm like, dude, every movie, he's always holding some piece of information back. He's like, I probably should have told you this. Like, I mean, didn't he know way early about the Horcruxes and Harry possible connection? Like, he knew that. Not at this point, but he knows more than he's telling always, because he's trying to protect Harry.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
End of every movie, he's like, Harry, I done fucked up. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have ended up facing a giant snake.
I held on to this information too long.
Yeah. like I dropped the ball. I know. That's 3 strikes for me.
I feel like in the end, he knows what's gonna happen. Like, he knew he was probably going to die. He knew what was, I feel like he has like a plan of what's going to happen before it happens. So he's holding information in, but it's only for the better good until it's actually vital for him to know.
Right.
So
he tries to hold it in, and then sometimes
as long as he can.
Sometimes he shits it out on accident. Oh, sorry, Harry. That wasn't supposed to happen. That's against the plan.
I mean, you realize until like the end that he's really not as nice as he's come across in the previous books.
Yeah,
it's really Severus that's the nice one.
Right.
Which it's like completely like you would think Severus is the bad one and Dumbledore's the good one, but it, like,
because in that.
Over.
And now we're in the 8th movie, but in that scene, we get the flashback, and Snape is like, well, shouldn't we tell him stuff? And he's like, no, he cannot know this. He's like, that's where you have that conversation where Snape is like, should we like bring Harry in on this information and stuff?
Yeah,
and
he's like, no, he must die.
No, it's got to happen. That's the way it is, man. It's that thing that you see, like, that big question is like, if you could find out the exact moment and the date of your death, would you want to know? It's like that kind of thing. And I think Dumbledore is just keeping Harry like, you don't need to know that you're kind of screwed. This is all heading towards you dying, albeit briefly, but still.
I mean, and also, is it because you have to really think like, is it because like, does he truly care about people, or is it because he has like a lust for power? Mm-hmm. And Voldemort's really the only one that could test it.
Again, to harp on this. To go back to Star Wars, it's kind of like Yoda and Palpatine. Yoda in those prequels, especially, very arrogant, very much like, oh, we could figure this out, blah, blah, blah. Like, he thinks he has all the answers. He thinks he's hot shit, basically. And he thinks he's got it under control. The other person thinks he's got it under control. But it's sort of like a grasping of power, and everyone else is, in a way, pawns. Mm-hmm. Not only grasping power, but also, like, I think Dumbledore ultimately will do whatever he needs to ensure victory over, Voldemort in this case. So it's also it's a Hot Fuzz reference for you, but the greater good. It's that kind of thing. Like, he doesn't want Harry to have to die because he cares about him, but if that's what needs to happen, in order for Voldemort to also die, then that shit happens, man. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's also doing it because Voldemort's just a bad guy.
right.
But I'm sure it's also because, he's like, he would be like one just as powerful
Right.
as Dumbledore.
Yeah.
He's
like, look, I'm all old and wise and grandfatherly. I got your best interest at heart. I'm definitely not up to some shenanigans. In addition to also trying to look out for everyone at the school. He's a way more complex character, I think, than we learn at this point. Let's see. I wanted to talk about the visual effects. Obviously, really good. Still hold up 15 years later.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I want to say perfect, but pretty close. Like there was nothing in it that's egregiously like if you watch even the Lord of the Rings movies now, there's moments here and there where you're like, ooh, that's not so great. The part where Legolas slides down the elephant, that looks very much like green screen.
Oh, yeah.
Even the troll from Sorcerer's Stone, not aged well. It looks like crap. Everything else looks pretty good, but that does not.
Very cartoony.
This is where CG was had reached the level where everything in this movie and maybe the previous one was like pitch perfect. And I think you see that you see that not only with the way things are executed, but also like the design of the dragons, of the mermaids, of the moment when Harry and Voldemort's wands connect. And just the way that looks, it should sound stupid. You're like, their wands shoot little fire at each other, and it's like locked, and sparks and people and ghosts and stuff. And you're like, that sounds goofy, man.
Yeah.
It's a very intense moment, and I think part of that is the visuals, and I think part of that is the music from Patrick Doyle, who is this is the first movie, the first Harry Potter movie that has a score not done by John Williams, because he did the music for the first three. So you have the Voldemort theme. You have to have a theme for each school. You have to still work in that ding, 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 the classic Harry Potter theme in there. And I think the score actually really holds up, which is weird considering, it was the first handoff from the legendary John Williams. Speak to some of that, the music, the visuals, anything else about the production that we haven't covered so far.
No, I think in terms of like maybe some of the underwater stuff, it could be a little bit questionable, like the shark head and everything. Maybe
that's true. That is a good point.
That was a little.
That might be the closest this comes to being like, ooh, sketchy.
Yeah, but still, it still holds up the movie, though. Aside from that,
I think the reason that gets a maybe a slight pass is that it's not an actual shark creature. It's a boy. Like
attached.
Manifesting into a shark form. So it's like you can kind of have that little bit of, it's not even supposed to be like the mermaids are supposed to be like creatures that exist.
Mm-hmm. That would be the only like scene that I would nitpick maybe if I had to about like special effects and stuff, but everything else, the dragon and the fight scenes with Harry and even like the Quidditch match and all that, it was really, really well done now.
Yeah, poor Harry. I was thinking about the Quidditch World Cup. I was watching it. And Harry gets knocked out like at least a couple times in every single one of these movies. Harry's just like, oh, where am I? Next chapter. I just thought that was funny.
But in terms of like, again, with the turning point, that makes sense that they move on from John Williams and get this guy because they also want to have a change in music.
Right. And they don't get Patrick Doyle to do all the scores either. Like I think it changes sort of on and off for the next few movies. Yeah, but John Williams doesn't come back. I think it's Patrick Doyle, and then I don't even remember who did 5, but it's Nicholas Hooper, I think. You had the scores for these movies at some point. I don't know if you still have or you got rid of them some point. But
yeah, I think I do still have all the CDs. Of them. Yeah.
I also wanted to make sure we pointed out Moaning Myrtle because she's awesome.
She's frisky for sure.
Oh my god, dude! And it's worse when you think about the fact that actress is like in her late 30s when she's playing this character, Shirley Henderson. She actually also does the voice of Babu Frick for people who saw The Rise of Skywalker. I don't even know if you've even seen that yet.
No, I haven't.
And Which is why I didn't have you on for the Star Wars series. I was like, hey, he's not into Star Wars. Harry Potter, I'll get to Freddy.
I was a little into Star Wars, but not
so much.
Not as much as you were.
Right.
You know?
That was always our thing. I was more Star Wars. You were more Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And we sort of
and
were.
a little Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Stuff,
We were both in the Lord of the Rings, though.
Yes. Yeah.
That was playing the games, the Two Towers and Return of the King. Those were fun.
I tried reading the books after I watched the movies for Lord of the Rings.
Not the same.
Did not, not the same experience. Different age level, and not as exciting as Harry Potter for sure.
Well, because the movies jump around more. Those are just like, we're going to spend 100 pages with Pippin and Merry walking around in this place and the trees, and it's like,
I would definitely say too descriptive.
Right.
Like talking about.
Let me tell you about what the hell is that dude's name?
Treebeard's
like branches look like.
Yeah, I swear there was a whole chapter of that one scene just describing the leaves falling from the trees and stuff. I mean, way too descriptive. I could only read up. I read the first one. I read half of the second one.
You rewatch the movies. You're like, I'm good.
Yeah, I was like,
I get it. I understand now.
I can't do this.
So Moaning Myrtle, because the actress is played by something like 30-something-year-old. It makes that feel like a #MeToo scene, like moment where she's like, "Oh, I'll tell all the bubbles were gone," and she's like trying to check out Harry's business.
If she wasn't
like,
a ghost,
Jesus,
it would be really weird. Yeah,
right. Yeah, you get a free pass because you're like, well, she can't like touch anything, even if she's like, "Hey, what's that?" She can't like.
Well, what else does she have though? She's a ghost.
That's true. She's like a peeping Tom.
She doesn't have like
something.
grown men going in.
That's true.
So she's like,
still creepy.
I'm around like boys, but what else?
She's peeping out their business. I don't know. It's a very uncomfortable scene.
Peeping Myrtle.
It's definitely Peeping Myrtle. Exactly. It's definitely a scene that if these movies were being made today, they would leave that shit out.
Yeah.
Especially for kids. Like, hey, let's go see a scene where some like grown woman's like, "What's up?" Of course, she's playing like 15, but it's still either way, any way you look at it, it's weird. You mentioned Peter Pettigrew. Timothy Spall shows up in obviously the graveyard scene a little bit there. We get more of him later on. Gary Oldman is Sirius Black, CG, coals and fire, Sirius Black. Is he in the book more? Doesn't he confer with him a couple times in the book?
Yes, it's more than just the one scene. I believe maybe like 2 or 3 times he talks to him in the fireplace, I think.
And I think it feels, I didn't look into this, I didn't get a chance to, but it feels to me like Gary Oldman was busy doing 6 million other things. Right. And so they had him record, exactly. They had him record the dialogue and then just did the CG for his face, because by the time you see him in the next one, when they have the conversation through the fire, it's Gary Oldman's face in like the fire, like, with flue powder or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, obviously he's in the next one substantially. So I always thought that was funny. I'm like, they just didn't want to. He's just busy that day, so let's just CG, and it looks cool. Like it's a neat approach to that scene, but it clearly felt like something that was designed to work around his schedule. Trying to see if there's any other people we wanted to mention. Rita Skeeter we mentioned a little bit.
Talk about Mad Eye.
We did. We mentioned Mad Eye.
Well, the different things about the polyjuice potion, like. They, like Moaning Myrtle mentioned the polyjuice potion in the bath. Yeah. Severus in the closet. I already mentioned that. He keeps drinking something.
Oh, but it's not pumpkin juice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I go back to the mystery element of these. Like there's hints there if you're paying attention to them.
Yeah.
But you're not looking because you're worried about the Triwizard Tournament, which is all like, to borrow from like Chicago, the razzle dazzle. It's like look at Triwizard. Don't pay attention to this shifty looking dude with the flask or or the Portkeys,
the screaming coming out of a chest or something.
Exactly. They set up the Portkey thing. They set up at the very beginning of the movie with the boot to take them to the Quidditch World Cup. Like the setting, the story structure is really clean, even in this individual movie. And these are obviously stories that compound and complicate each other as they go along. But even in this one, they set up the introduction of the Portkey, and then it pays off at the end in a way no one is expecting, readers or viewers.
Yeah, I wonder also if with Lucius at the Quidditch match. Did he know that all that was going to happen after the Quidditch match? Because he stopped Harry and he said like something about you better enjoy these moments or whatever, like kind of like as if he's like foreshadowing like, hey, I know something's going to happen at this Quidditch match after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. It's unclear. We don't get any indication whether he was participating in that
or
among
maybe
the Death
he
Eaters,
knew or something.
or if he was he got a whisper. That time he got a whisper, but not the rest of the time. Yeah, it's unclear because everything he says is ominous and creepy and threatening regardless. So it's just easy to be like, yeah, there goes Lucius threatening a teenager again like he does. Oh, that Lucius. Hagrid, we don't get much Hagrid in this. I think it's probably the first time. This is the least amount of Hagrid we get. It basically he's just there to sort of romance what's her face, whose name I'm blanking on, and I'm trying to find it. Maxime of the headmistress of the Beauxbatons, and we get to learn a little bit more about like his half giant parentage. He's just basically there to show the dragons to Harry, pretty much, and that's kind of all he does in this movie.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
a couple funny scenes. With what was the name?
The Maxim, the magazine. It's also a men's magazine, sexy men's magazine. So I can see why Hagrid was interested.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the shifting roles of the ensemble players for in the Harry Potter series are really just story based. Like not only based on what the book has, but also he's like their mentor / buddy in the first couple when they're little kids and they need that. And then as they grow up, they rely on Hagrid less and less to the point that he's there throughout all these movies, but he's not really an integral part anymore going forward, I'd say. And then it's just the matter of stripping away all of Harry's support system. First, starting with the fact that now he feels unsafe in his school. Cedric got killed and like all hell's about to break loose. Then spoilers, Sirius and then Dumbledore, and then kind of trickling down until Harry has to kind of stand up for himself. So it's that rise to the call to action kind of deal. Mm-hmm. So I think that's definitely a part of why Hagrid's gradually shifting out as from prominence in this series. Is there anything we haven't covered? I feel like we've caught a lot of stuff. I didn't make, like I said, I'm not taking 400 notes because I don't want to I don't want to over saturate it.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward of a movie, like the Triwizard Tournament and then like the Quidditch World Cup and things.
We've already talked about like what some of the things that aren't in the movie that they cut out with the whole like elf rights and stuff. They in the books they delved into that, and Hermione's like trying to like fight for elf rights.
I remember that.
And also, Dobby is the one to give Harry like the gillyweed.
Kai pointed that out. Yeah. She actually only really read the books like last year because she's finally like, I guess I should watch these. Though she's gonna come on to talk about 6. Yeah. So she was like, hey, that was different in the books. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I think it was because I listened to the audiobooks like a million years ago. So yeah, but at the end, that's just a matter of how well. Otherwise, Neville would have nothing to do. And it's like, and I mentioned to Kai, it's like having a CG character in this movie for one scene. Basically, it's just
exactly
because they weren't going to do the elf rights thing, which is a cool subplot, but very much something you put in a novel to world build, not something you put in a movie where you need to actually progress the story constantly.
I felt like it was necessarily cut.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you don't want Dobby just coming out of nowhere like
Harry Potter, here's some gillyweed, bye. Yeah, exactly. There's no use. There's no place for him without that subplot, basically. Exactly. So, and we talked about the Yule Ball, kind of. We talked about the movie is also. I feel like we've undersold like the humor. There's a lot of like really fun moments in these movies too. I like
the awkwardness between Harry and Ron trying to ask out women and how they go in pairs and stuff.
We're like, "Are you gonna ask me to dance?" No, and it storms off.
Yeah,
like the Patel twins, or sisters. I guess I don't know if they're twins. And then the moment where Ron is having Hermione relay a message to Harry when he's standing right there. He's like, oh, Pavarti told us so, and she's like, I'm not an owl. Like that, the dynamics between those friendships, I feel like it's really, they're enriching it a lot more. So that by the time you get to the last one, when it's really the three of them against the Death Eaters in large portion of it, their friendship has been through so much, and they've overcome so much, and they've grown so much as people, and their friendships have deepened to the point when Ron and Hermione kiss in the Chamber of Secrets, spoilers, in 8, I think, it's like the moment that these movies have been building for like years. And when Harry faces off against Voldemort for the final time in that last movie, this is where that really starts to take shape. And in a large portion, like you could almost be like, sit someone down, tell them the story of the first 3, and then be like, all right, now shit gets real, and then play this. You know what I mean? Kind of like the way that episodes 1 and 2 for Star Wars are like, yeah, he's a Jedi and they fly around. And then Revenge of the Sith is where it really kind of starts the story of the rest of the movies. I feel like that this is really the turning point. I've said that already, but this is really...
Like 5 times.
I know. The turning point.
We've both said that.
This is the most pivotal chapter where everything... Hermione says it. Everything's going to change now, isn't it? And then Harry's like, yeah. The fuck? You've been here, and the dude's back, and shit's scary. And
it's all my fault.
They should have just done that. Like, open your eyes, Hermione. Damn. And then walk away. Credits. No, but I think we've done a good job kind of covering it. I would put this, maybe I think I like 8 and 3, and then it's between this and 6 for me. I think maybe I like
Order of the Phoenix.
I did not care for Order of the Phoenix as much. Order of the Phoenix is probably bottom 3 for me, but I'm going to rewatch it for the next installment of this, this podcast series. So we'll see if my opinion changes at all. But I like all the relationshipy stuff too. Yeah. When Half-Blood Prince came out, a lot of people were like, what the hell? They're spending so much time with this love potion and this, whatever her name, Lavender Brown and all this stuff. And people were like, more of the Voldemort flashbacks. And I hadn't read the book at that point. I saw the movies first because obviously that's my preferred medium for storytelling. And I liked all that stuff, like the love triangle things and all that. I like all that shit, the friendships, like I was just saying. So I don't think you needed 4 flashbacks of like Voldemort was scary since he was forever, he was always scary, and he had bad shit happen. Yeah. I'm like, I get it. Just give me a couple of the gist and move on.
I get it. He's scary.
Yeah, it's a little kid in that flashback in 6, and I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. He's like, it's like straight Omen shit.
Turn that cupboard into fire. What happened?
Yeah. Stay away from that kid. So, any closing thoughts on Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire? Obviously, people have seen these movies, so. They're available on HBO Max as of now. I don't think they are going to be there for very long, just because licensing deals and stuff. So definitely check that out. Any other further closing thoughts on the movie?
I don't know. I just think that this is a really good turning point.
It is a turning point of the podcast, a turning point of the Harry Potter.
So much of it.
So. Normally is where I ask guests to tell people where they can find them on social media. Do you use any social media these days?
I don't really use social
Instagram,
media.
Anything?
You can find, there's different social medias with variations of my name, Freddy _Yaniz.
Just go into your social media
Freddy
app of choice.
Yaniz.
Type in something approximating Freddy Yaniz and friend whoever it is. Maybe it's him, maybe it's not. It's a mystery. Shot in the dark.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a shot in the dark for me too when I log into my account.
Jeez.
Like, _.
Yeah, you don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
God. Well, thank you for coming on to talk about Harry Potter. I'm glad I was able to get you into one of the Harry Potters, and this is what was that? Turning point, I think.
Yeah.
Is the phrase of the franchise. So I'm glad I was able to get you in for this one. So I don't know when we'll bring you back eventually. It's up to you. You want to talk about something? You let me know.
Oh, one of the things that I also thought.
Oh, about Harry Potter?
Yeah, about Harry Potter. I like how it started where it ended.
Yes.
With the whole tournament. It started at the graveyard with that statue of Tom Riddle's dad. kind of alluding to like death maybe in the book by having such like a, you know, obviously like it seems like it's going to foreshadow something dark happening and maybe Cedric Diggory's death at the end. I don't know. I felt like maybe that was like a foreshadow.
Yeah.
So I like how it went full circle. Like it started and then it ended like the whole tournament with that same image.
Yeah.
So
it's cool. It's
right
a good
where-
one.
yeah.
I feel like somehow this movie has gotten underrated in the series. I don't know why. I don't know why exactly, but I feel like maybe because people
It's a
feel
lot
like
of
it.
tournament fluff.
Yeah, and maybe people feel like at the end makes the rest of the movie kind of not worth it. But
Yeah.
I like that about Face, as I said. So, is there anything you want to come back on the show to talk about anytime soon? You can always come on and just pick something, and then we get you back on here to talk about whatever. Let me know. Think about
yeah,
it. Let me know.
I'll let you know.
You have my contact info. I'm very track downable on social media, as people know.
Say your things. Then.
You can find Crooked Table on Twitter at Crooked Table, Instagram, Facebook. We have a Facebook page as well. Tumblr, I think also. We're everywhere. And of course at crookedtable.com. Stay tuned for more episodes. We have a lot of interesting things in the pipeline. But of course, we'll have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix next month. And kind of round this out by the end of the year. I'm already kind of working in my head of solidifying what franchise I want to do for next year. It might not be fantasy or sci-fi.
You could do Lord of the Rings.
That's too short though. See, I want to go.
You could do Hobbit.
Fuck those movies. No thanks. Pass. I did Star Wars because it's all like a thing. But I'm not doing the Fantastic Beasts for the same reason. Those movies don't exist anymore. Nobody's really like more Fantastic Beasts. I don't. Did you see two?
Huh?
Did you see The Crimes of Grindelwald?
No.
Yeah. See, and you're a Harry Potter person. We just talked a whole thing about your history, and even you're like, fuck.
I haven't read
don't
those
care.
books. Yeah, no, I haven't even. I
Yeah.
haven't
See,
watched the
nobody
movie,
cares.
I haven't read the books. So.
I was telling Kai that yesterday. I was like, they've so devalued this franchise that even hardcore Harry Potter fans are like, this is not for me. I'm like, Harry Potter? It's
I want them
not
to
for
add
you?
to,
What the hell?
I want them to add to Harry Potter.
Well, and when I was watching Goblet of Fire, I saw the flashback with Karkakoff at his trial, and I said to Kai, I said, why isn't this the prequel series you're doing? This is what I'd rather see. Mm-hmm. Show me Lily, James, Sever, like show me all of them when this starts to happen the first time. Don't give me, and then there was this guy who liked animals, and Grindelwald, who we don't care about, and like, what the hell?
It's one of their books that they mentioned or something.
Yeah, it was the first
books.
one was a textbook. And
exactly.
That's what they made the first one based off of. So I don't know what the hell's no one knows what's happening with the third one. If it's supposed to still make, they're supposed to still make it. There's rumors they might just like wrap it up with an HBO Max limited series and call it a day, because she wanted to do 5 of them, and I'm like, man, I don't even want to watch one. So I mean, I saw the one and it was boring.
Yeah,
but yes,
maybe you should do a show next.
I mean, I have
like you do each season.
I don't know if I would do
Grey's Anatomy.
No thanks. I have some ideas, and people I've talked to about doing what I call crooked detours, where it is essentially a non-movie, so a show or whatever. So I have a couple ideas like for that, but I don't know if I want to do like seasons of a show. I don't have that ton of time.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we'll definitely get you back on here at some point to talk about something, not Harry Potter obviously, but something. So let me know. And until next time, this is the Crooked Table Podcast, and I've been Rob.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED